Welcome to A Moment of Zen. Time to sit back and relax as model, actress, mentor, and supermom Zen Sams takes you on a sexy and wild ride, covering the latest in film, fashion, pop culture, cryptocurrency, fintech, cannabis, and entertainment from the millennial mom's perspective. Here's your host, Zen Sams.
Hello, my beautiful tri-state area. Welcome to our 142nd episode. Happy holidays and Merry Christmas. It's always a pleasure to spend my time with you on the airwaves. Thank you for listening and interacting with me on social media. That truly does make it all worthwhile. Please make sure to follow me at Zen Sams. That's Zen with an X, not a Z. Also remember that we're on Traverse TV Sundays at 1 p.m. Eastern, and all episodes of A Moment of Zen stream 24/7 on Kathy Ireland's Your Home TV. And of course, you can always find us on our YouTube channel at Zen Sams. We have a great show lined up for you tonight. In our Going Deep segment, we're featuring Dr. Wendy Roberts, a prominent board-certified dermatologist and dermatopathologist. Dr. Wendy specializes in cosmetic, generational dermatology, and ethnic skin of color. She's here today to chat anti-aging, beauty innovations, and the latest in dermatological skincare. Of course, that's brought to us by CO2lift.com. In America's favorite pharmacist segment, brought to you by Triquetra Health, we're chatting with the amazing Phil Cowley, pharmaceutical expert. Today, we're chatting all about ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Of course, we've all heard of it. A neurodevelopment disorder, meaning it relates to the development of the neurological systems and the brain. He's going to break it all down for us, from shortages of medication to cures, symptoms, and what you should know as a parent. Up next in our Hydration with Heart segment, brought to you by the incredible Once Upon a Coconut, we're featuring Ben Greenfield, a health consultant, speaker, and New York Times bestselling author of a wide variety of books, including Beyond Training, Boundless, Fit Soul, Boundless Cookbook, Boundless Parenting, and Boundless Kitchen. Today, Ben joins me to chat health hacks that will get you through the holidays enjoyably, the craze behind holiday weight gain, and why statistics show it's more overblown than you think. In our Discover Your Potential Express segment, we're featuring Anna DeVere. And Anna, of course, is going to bring you self-care tips and self-love tips to prepare you for a new year and a new you. Stay tuned for our Going Deep segment featuring Wendy Roberts, Dr. Wendy Roberts, a prominent board-certified dermatologist and dermatopathologist. We're chatting anti-aging, beauty innovations, and the latest in dermatological skincare. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeart Radio. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by Kathy Ireland's Your Home TV and their channel partners. Head to yourhometv.com for free, family-friendly programming, streaming 24/7.
Join news reporter Gina Tomlinson and real estate expert Ralph Nudie as Gina gets nudie to show you the hottest places to eat, stay, and play in the world's best beach towns. Tune in to Nudie on the Beach, streaming on Your Home TV at nudieonthebeach.tv. That's NUDI on the beach.tv.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by CO2 Lift. As we age, our skin loses moisture and elasticity, causing wrinkled skin. You can reverse this aging process with CO2 Lift. CO2 Lift utilizes the powerful benefits of carbon dioxide to lift, tighten, and regenerate your skin. This simple, painless at-home carboxytherapy treatment is scientifically proven to reverse the aging process. You will see reduction in wrinkles, increase luminosity, and improve pigmentation, sagging, skin tone, and radiance. For more information or to order CO2 Lift, go to CO2lift.com.
Welcome back, beautiful tri-state area. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeart Radio. I'm your host, Zen Sams. Up next in our Going Deep segment, we're featuring Dr. Wendy Roberts. She's a prominent board-certified dermatologist and dermatopathologist. Dr. Roberts specializes in cosmetic dermatology, generational dermatology, and ethnic skin of color. She's well equipped by the rigors of her Stanford Medical School training, surgical and dermatology residences, and pathology fellowship. She is the founding director of dermatopathology of Loma Linda Division of Dermatology. She's tackled and triumphed over a comprehensive range of skin problems, diseases, and conditions using innovative methods that have earned her national and international recognition. Generational dermatology is a practice she's very passionate about, which imparts education and science to help treat patients from the generational boom worldwide. As chairperson of the first summit on generational dermatology, she's introducing new approaches to treating the evolving aging patient. Now, you're probably not used to thinking of skin as an organ, but it's actually the largest organ of the body. It has a myriad of functions and is a big contributor to overall health. Skin of color requires some special attention to keep it healthy and attractive. It's prone to some conditions which are not typical of white skin, such as hyperpigmentation or the risk that skin cancers tend to be more advanced at the time of diagnosis. So, what are the best ways to take care of darker skin? Many people of color struggle to find good products for their skin, or they get bad advice from people who aren't as experienced in treating skin of color. Luckily, today I'm joined by the amazing Dr. Wendy Roberts. She's here today to chat anti aging, beauty innovations, and the latest in dermatological skincare. Welcoming now to the show is the awesome Dr. Wendy Roberts. Welcome, Stunner.
Hello. Thank you. What an introduction. All those D's.
All those D's,
Conquered
yeah.
and done well.
I'm in the presence of a trailblazer. I'm so excited to chat with you. Christmas is in just a few days, and what a treat it is to have you here today. So, Dr. Roberts is one of the first dermatologists to recognize the potential of carboxytherapy. Can you share what specific aspects of this therapy impressed you the most?
Yes, when I first used this carboxy therapy, and actually, yeah, I was the first dermatologist in the nation to use it. I immediately, because of my years of experience, I knew that there was something different. This product was a game changer. It had attributes of things that I had never seen before. We call our toolbox, right? In dermatology, we've got this, we've got steroids, we've got all kind of things in our toolbox, but this was different. And it was different because of the science. And it really used these scientific principles that have been yet to use. We call it the Bohr principle. And it really brings, oxygen to the tissues, brings life to the tissue. And, oxygen brings life. And oxygen also, quenches toxins. It brings blood supply. And blood supply is so amazing because blood supply gives life to our skin, right? We know when our skin doesn't have any color in it, we look dead, right? So blood supply brings life, but blood supply also takes away toxins. And there was never any product on the market that had this kind of attribute. And I knew the first time I used it and saw the results on my patient, it was a game changer, and started using it for a host of different disorders. You can use it for so many things.
It's quite proprietary. You're 1,000% right. And when CO2 is used alone or in conjunction with other procedures, CO2 lift increased skin hydration by more than 117% compared to baseline, with with these specific improvements lasting up to 3 weeks. So the physiological effects, also include increases in tissue oxygenation, which you just mentioned, flow rate and vasodilation, and this all contributes to an incredible neoangiogenesis. So we're looking at the science, it backs it up, and you are 100% right to use it because you set precedence. So the founder of CO2 Lift has praised your ability to think outside the box, Dr. Roberts. Can you give an example of how this mindset has influenced your approach to dermatology and skincare innovations?
Yeah, I've always been passionate about aging, and I never quite could understand, why we had to age. And back in about 2007, I was like, what is going on with my patients? Why are they aging, and why do we have to do this? So, thinking about it, and you talked about it earlier about the skin being an organ. Thinking about like an organ, and with my background in pathology, I said, let's treat the skin like any other organ. Let's get proactive. Let's get heart smart. Let's get skin smart. Why are we waiting for brown spots to occur when we know that if you live like I do in sunny Southern California, you're going to have brown spots on your skin? Let's get ahead of it. So that thinking out of the box started this whole movement in my specialty of generational dermatology, which now is every day, right? We all
Yeah.
know to be proactive, baby Botox, all the things we do, the CO2 lift, making sure that our skin is hydrated, making sure that our barrier is great so we don't age, because we really are a sum of our environment. And the earlier we start, the better the skin's going to be, because skin aging doesn't happen overnight. And we
It
have
catches
science.
up. It catches up.
Yeah,
One day
yeah.
you wake up and you're like, I have all these
Mhm.
wrinkles.
Yeah.
Glowing skin. I always live by three mottos. Glowing skin is always in. Filters are great, but great skin is better. And exfoliate the bad vibes.
Yes.
So now we have all heard of the Clarisonic brush. So let's go back for those of you listening and watching that are too young to know of the Clarisonic brush. But the Clarisonic is one of the brands that pioneered people taking care of their skin, not just when they had a problem, but proactively. And being involved in the development of the Clarisonic brush, Dr. Wendy Roberts, you were one of the first involved. What parallels do you see between the impact of that tool and CO2 lift treatment on the skin? I mean, with the rise of at-home skincare devices, what advice do
Mhm.
you give to patients looking to incorporate these into their routines?
Yes, well, the Clarisonic brush was first in class. There'd been no rotary brushes that ever. And the idea, the concept, it came from the toothbrush, right? And the concept that you would take the science of a rotary toothbrush and apply it to the skin was new and had never been done. And that the power behind the Clarisonic brush is because of the pores on our skin flexing, and the pores on our skin flexing actually exercises the pores. And like a muscle, when you exercise something, it doesn't get flabby. And pores on our face, pores on our nose are is basically flabby skin, flabby pores. So you exercise the pores are toned, the muscle, and you can keep small pores. So now we go the to the CO2 lift, and it has that same type of like hard science basis, working not on the surface of the skin, but underneath. And that's what's really happening now. We are working in the lower layers of the skin to get these results that we see, glowing skin, smooth skin, airbrush looking skin. It doesn't start from outside in, it starts from inside out.
I love that. It starts from inside out. You're 100% right. Now, given your extensive experience, what trends do you currently see in dermatological treatments that excite you about the future of skin health?
Yeah, the mask again, amazing treatment, and we're going to see it for more and more things. We're using it for hydration, we're using it for eczema, for all kinds of things, for wound healing. Wound healing is really important, because if you can't heal your wounds, scratches, and cuts, then you're going to have problems. So we're working a lot on getting the fibroblasts and the key cells that make tissue, getting them revved up and returning them to normal. So you're going to see a lot of non-invasive. It's really all non-invasive now. Nobody wants downtime. And
No
however,
downtime.
no, no, because we're busy. We're too busy doing everything. We don't have time for it. And when we're not busy, we don't necessarily want to be, taking care of our faces. So the new trends are cold therapy is going to be something that's increasing, where it used to be everything was laser hot. Now you're going to see things cold, cold, cold. And that's a new trend. Stem cell therapy, PRP, and exosomes, and all of those things, again, that work under the skin and create young skin from within. Those are the new trends that are coming. And let's not forget about hair, right? Hair is huge. Hair is like, called hair is the new lip. Nobody wants to lose their hair. But again, for the viewers, you can't start, in your fifth decade to think about your hair. Your hair growth, really, you've got to start keeping an eye on it in your third decade, because from that generational standpoint and that lens that I see everything through, you need to check in with the dermatologist in your 30s and just get a take on where, your hair
Stay
health
ahead of the game. Yeah,
and
because
where
one
you're
day,
going. Mhm.
right, because you don't want to wake up one day and have all these wrinkles and be bald.
No, no.
So we definitely want to be ahead of that one. Now, are there any specific skin conditions or concerns that you find carbon dioxide therapy for the skin to be particularly effective for? What we call carboxytherapy gel.
Yeah. Yes, there are. So I love it in the second decade for, our 20s. It's great because it really helps that barrier and get you set up in a good way for future skincare. So I highly recommend it in that very young group. The mask is great, keeps you hydrated. It's great after you have a beach vacation, you've done your skin in, and even skiing too. The sun is harsh and it's great for after skiing. So it's great for that. I love it. Any type of dry skin for my patients that suffer with eczema and dry skin condition. Now, I don't know if you know this, but dry skin is the root of most of our tough skin disorders. And if you can get the skin conditioned and hydrated with the carboxytherapy mask, that right there is a game changer. I've used this mask on eczema patients, and I haven't used any other prescription medications, and they've been cleared. So,
Wow,
yeah,
that's
especially,
impressive.
it really is. And
Well, that goes
especially,
back to what you said. It increases the presence of wound repair factors and
yeah,
growth factors, which help cells turn over faster, reducing the
yes,
appearance of aging and scars, stretch marks, and
yes.
more. And then you add stimulating collagen and elastin production, which promotes elasticity and helps retain
Mhm.
hydration. And then you go one step further, and you go even further in that absorption, improving local metabolism and elimination of waste products, which then
Yes,
helps the body heal localized damage such as scars or acne and hyperpigmentation.
yeah,
So, the regenerating and repairing factors, of the damaged tissue to help clients achieve better looking skin
yeah.
and feel good about themselves is everything in this mask. I could not agree with you more. Now we have about a minute and a half, and I want to talk about what is the most common misconception about skincare that you frequently address with your patients.
Yeah. Well, the most common misconception is that skin will just take care of itself. That I can use this, I can use that, and under no direction, and get an outcome. It's a lot of do it yourself and skincare, and I think that's a misconception because yes, there are a lot of things out there. I liken it to like a symphony, right? There's a lot of instruments, but every symphony has a conductor because the conductor
True.
knows the particular nuances of each instrument and how together you're going to make for a beautiful piece of music. So I say that with skincare. Yes, you can do it yourself, but also your results are even amplified when you go in, when you see a dermatologist who has a passion about skincare and can put it all together, give you tips, get you there quicker, easier on the pocketbook, not trying lots of this and that. And I people say, well, I'll just try it myself. I'm like, no, we can get there so much faster together. And so I would say that's probably that the misconception that and I love to address and I put out there is that we have a lot of tools and a lot of education to and experience. Knowledge of anatomy is so important. There's so much in dermatology that I love to share with my patients, and that I would say. And I would also, one thing I want to say, coming back to the mask, you said something really neat. I would say in a sentence, it's like an IV for the skin.
Oh,
You
I
know,
love
I
that too. You're full of
Yeah, right.
incredible. You're like the CO2lift.com queen quoter.
It's like an IV. It just saves your skin. Period.
Yeah. Well, we are out of time. This was a fantastic conversation. Thank you so much for coming on. You're full of knowledge, and I love that you go deep.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. That was our Going Deep segment brought to you by co2lift.com. That was the amazing Dr. Wendy Roberts. She's a preeminent board certified physician, dermatologist, and board certified dermatopathologist. Now, Dr. Wendy Roberts, she specializes in everything cosmetic dermatology, generational dermatology, and ethnic skin of color. You can head directly to her website at wendyrobertsmd.com, or you can check her out on the gram at Dr. Wendy Roberts Youth Booster. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeart Radio. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by CO2 Lift. As we age, our skin loses moisture and elasticity, causing wrinkled skin. You can reverse this aging process with CO2 Lift. CO2 Lift utilizes the powerful benefits of carbon dioxide to lift, tighten, and regenerate your skin. This simple, painless at-home carboxytherapy treatment is scientifically proven to reverse the aging process. You will see reduction in wrinkles, increase luminosity, and improve pigmentation, sagging, skin tone, and radiance. For more information or to order CO2 Lift, go to co2lift.com.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by Kathy Ireland's Your Home TV and their channel partners. Head to yourhometv.com for free, family-friendly programming, streaming 24/7.
Disconnected Kids, Reconnected Families is a documentary-style reality series providing an in-home look at families who have children in need of intervention for conditions ranging from behavioral issues and oppositional defiance to autism and ADHD. Watch as Dr. Robert Melillo and his wife Carolyn go into the home and get real with the families. Using decades of experience, they help families not only face the issues head-on, but also overcome their challenges and reconnect as a family. Exclusively on Your Home TV network.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by Your Home TV.
Hi, this is Kathy Ireland here on A Moment of Zen, brought to you by Your Home TV. We've developed an all-inclusive subscription-free network that you're going to love, whether it's financial freedom, fashion, beauty, health and wellness, wonderful weddings, travel and culture, cooking, entertainment, and short-form documentaries, programming for everyone. Classic films and new shows, including Kathy Ireland Presents American Dreams. We've developed this network just for you. Please check out yourhometv.com.
Tune in to A Moment of Zen, Saturday nights from 9 to 10 p.m. on WOR, the voice of New York, iHeart Radio.
Welcome back, beautiful tri-state area. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeart Radio. I'm your host, Zen Sams. Up next in America's favorite pharmacist segment, brought to you by Triquetra Health, we're chatting with the amazing Phil Cowley. Today, we're chatting all about ADHD. That's Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder. It's a neurodevelopmental disorder, meaning it relates to the development of the neurological systems and brain. And the disorder is identified by patterns of excessive and ongoing hyperactivity, impulsivity, and inattentiveness. You've all heard of it. ADHD symptoms typically begin in childhood when it's diagnosed and can continue into adulthood in about 50% of the cases. However, if a person is not diagnosed as a child because the disorder is overlooked or left unrecognized, they can still be diagnosed as an adult, and then it gets really hard to unwind. Sometimes a diagnosis in childhood could be missed when the individual's symptoms are less severe in their younger years, or when they work to compensate for these symptoms so others don't notice. But here to break it all down for us is our pharmaceutical expert and our weekly contributor, Phil Cowley. Welcome back, superstar.
Hey, thank you. This is a great one, but we have to move fast because people with ADHD, we lose their attention. So we'll have to really dive into it.
All right, let's go. Here we go. Let's talk about trends in ADHD and diagnosis. So over the last 2 decades, we've observed a significant rise in ADHD diagnoses, Phil, with national surveys indicating an increase from 6% to over 10% between 1998 and 2018. What factors do you believe have contributed to this major surge in diagnoses?
Well, there's a few things that we have to look at. First is the observance of it. So it used to be if you weren't twitching in your seat and your teacher wasn't grabbing onto you and putting you back, that you didn't have it because you didn't have the hyperactive component. But then we saw such a large rate of failure amongst certain genetic groups, especially families. And we noticed that when we started treating the attention side, they started to succeed more, which then led to even a higher rate of how and what we are looking at for ADHD. And then as adults, it's funny, the number of people that come in as adults to me and they're telling me all their symptoms. I'm like, have you ever been even looked at? And they said, no, my dad just said I just needed to work harder. And they never even looked at the attention component of it. So diagnostics have changed. A lot more adults are going in now. And then you also always have to remember ADHD shows up when you're under stress. So some people do really well in middle school, grammar school, and even high school. But once you hit college levels, it's harder. So then you stress it, and then the genetic disorder underneath starts to show.
It's interesting because the statistics, they don't lie. More than 366 million adults worldwide have ADHD, and that's as of 2020. And around 6 in 10 US children with ADHD also have at least one other mental or emotional or behavioral condition, such as anxiety and depression. So this has to be nipped in the bud early on, because an estimated 77% of US children diagnosed with ADHD receive treatment, while we have a huge population, close to 25%, that they don't receive any treatment, Phil. So it's scary as a mom to see that this could go not only undiagnosed, but untreated, which brings me into the next topic: medication shortages. So the US has experienced ADHD medication shortages in recent years. Could you elaborate on the underlying causes of these shortages and what measures have been taken to address them?
So there's a couple of things I find super interesting. The first one is we have things that are called quotas by the FDA. The FDA says you can bring in so many kilograms of each substance in the United States to be able to even manufacture inside the United States. And each year, it's August 23rd is the day they release it. You expect this increase in medications like methylphenidate or, your mixed amphetamine salts. But the last 4 years in a row, even though there's been shortages inside the United States, those quotas have not been raised. So we don't even have the potential of bringing in the substance to make more of both these medications. The FDA has stopped that, which means our dependence on foreign sources will continue to be there because we can't even allow our manufacturers to do it. But if you look at different manufacturers such as Teva or Teva, depending on which way you want to say it, they're a Jerusalem-based company. So every time there's any sort of conflict over in Jerusalem, and then we see reduction in numbers of all of our ADHD medications because we are dependent upon them. So not only is it the number of people using it, but we can't even produce it here in the United States if we wanted to. So we are continually reliant upon foreign sources, and they're great partners until they have crises of their own.
I had no idea. I just learned something new, and I was completely under the impression that most of the ADHD medication was manufactured here in America. This is interesting that now not only is there a war that's broken out, but we have a whole bunch of children here and even adults that can't get the medications they need. Now, research shows, and this is interesting because I was researching from the millennial mom's perspective, but ADHD is more common in males than females. So I was trying to figure out what the ratio difference was. But it's interesting because females who do struggle with ADHD typically exhibit more inattentiveness symptoms rather than hyperactivity and impulsive symptoms, like you were alluding to earlier on. And there is far less research on ADHD in females, and females may even go underdiagnosed, partly because their hyperactive impulsive behaviors show up differently than they do in boys, which requires further study. But I do think, to your point, there's the practitioners need to be able to truly identify this at an early stage. Now, let's talk about impact of long-term medication use. So, ADHD medication use has lasting positive effects on the brain, according to findings from brain imaging studies. Research also shows that leaving ADHD symptoms untreated carries far greater risks, including unemployment and substance abuse, than does lifelong medication use. Now, a recent study highlighted a potential link between long-term ADHD medication use and increased cardiovascular disease risk. So this is a conflicting finding. What aspects of these medications might contribute to such health risks?
So most of the medications we're speaking about, there are a couple that aren't. They're stimulant medications. And the thing about a stimulant medication is our brains right now who have ADHD, they're lacking a few key components like your norepinephrine and your dopamine. And by using stimulants, we're able to increase or help maintain both the norepinephrine and the dopamine. However, when you take a pill, it doesn't just go straight to the brain and stay there. It also goes to the cardiovascular system. So it makes our heart rate go up. It makes the vascularity itself constrict and causes more stress on it. So you have both sides going on all of the time, and it should be expected. It's like opiates. You could take opiates, you get used to it in one way, but the constipation never goes away. It's the one that won't go away. Well, with stimulants, your heart rate will always be increased, and the stress on your cardiovascular system is higher. This leads to the thing I always tell everybody, though. Omega fatty acids are the best way. So Triquetra makes this fantastic new omega fatty acid, so it doesn't taste like fish. And when you're taking an omega fatty acid, it helps reduce heart risk almost to the same rate as this study indicates that it may be there. And omega fatty acids are the first thing I tell everybody to take if you have ADHD, if you're trying to naturally help supplement it a little bit. So there are ways around it. And like I said, the Triquetra's new brand of omega fatty acids, the one I first leaned to, just because it doesn't taste like fish and you get all of the EPA and DHA.
Fascinating. I love it that you have a cure for pretty much everything. That's why you are America's favorite pharmacist, Phil. Now, if for those wondering why I'm dressed so fancy with all this, Phil, it's because it's Christmas Eve tomorrow night, my friends. And although we're talking about ADHD, I do want to remind you that time to be with your friends and family is of the utmost importance, especially if you are one that has ADHD and can't sit still. This is a time to really focus because holidays truly do matter. Now, let's go back a little bit here. Experts haven't pinpointed the exact cause of ADHD, although we know that genetics are suspected to play a huge part. And 3 out of 4 children with ADHD have a relative with the disorder too. And this is according to APA. Now, environmental factors are also suspected to have a hand in causing ADHD. And the factors can include brain injury, exposure to lead as a baby or child, premature birth, extreme stress during pregnancy, smoking and alcohol use while pregnancy, and so much more. But Phil, where do you think that the causation is coming from if you had to take one educated guess?
I think that there was a time where ADHD was actually beneficial in nature. I think that those people with ADHD, they kind of have these superpowers in some way. Once they decide to hook onto something, holy cow, nobody can stop them. They're fantastic at what they're doing at that moment, but they're missing out on everything else. And they're also really great in certain jobs, vocations. They actually do really well. I think that the ADHD crisis, as you'd call it, has a lot more to do with how society has now regulated who does what and how. And so I think that now that you have to sit in a cubicle, there's a lot of people whose ADHD becomes a weakness because of how they have to work. And I think that's where it comes from. I think it's been with us from the beginning. And I think that we're all very good at what we should be doing all of the time. It's just not all of us are good about sitting and answering phones all day. It's just not what we were made to do. And that requires now to look at ADHD in a different light.
Yeah, because who's to say what ADHD is or isn't? I mean, my daughter is a theater baby. She couldn't sit still, even if she tried, but she's a huge, musical theater child and actor and on television. And she's 8 years old. And, ADHD, if you put her, if you put her in the confines of a classroom and tell her she can't move for 8 hours straight, well, maybe she will exhibit certain ADHD symptoms, right? So I question a lot as a mother. Now, concerns about controlled substances. So let's go back. So given that many ADHD medications such as Adderall and some of the methylphenidates are classified as Schedule II controlled substances, what should parents consider when these drugs are prescribed to their children?
The one drug I really love for when somebody gets it, saying whether or not it's efficacious or not, are the ADD meds. So if I were to take an ADD med because I don't have ADHD and I know this, if I took it, my heart rate would race. I would be all over the place. I would look like a squirrel that's drinking coffee. Like you could not keep up with me. But my son, he's a squirrel with drinking coffee. Before I give him his pill and everything goes smooth. In fact, we used to give him we had too high of a dose and he would zombie out. So you'll know immediately whether or not this is something you need to worry about by giving it. Like you'll know the first day. And so it works the same as adults. I just had a little mom come in and she was so resistant to wanting to try it. And I'm like, you have 4 kids and you're telling me you can't keep track of anything and that life is stressful. And she said, yes. And then I said, well, why don't you try it for a week? She came in and she said, I can get everything done. I go to sleep on time. Everything's great. So when you come to controlled substances with the ADHD meds, watch the person. And if it settles them down, they actually don't love it. You'll give it to them and the kids will fight against it. Right. Whereas if somebody takes it and they're using it in order to stay up later, to do more, they start using it as a crutch in order to succeed. Those individuals, you won't see that. So I love it because if you talk to the patient, you know exactly what's going on, and then you can reduce your risk because at that point, you'll know who really needs it.
Very nicely said, Mr. Pharmaceutical Expert. You've convinced me. Now, interestingly, some of the most significant increases in ADHD diagnoses has been observed in adults. So now we're seeing that increase. What are some common signs in the workplace that might indicate an adult has ADHD? And I kind of feel like this question is a double-edged sword after the monologue I just gave. But what's your take on this?
So I find productivity is the most important thing. You'll find people who are just frustrated with their own productivity, not because they're being lazy or anything else. They start a project and they can't finish it. And soon they have 5 or 6 projects in front of them, each done really well, 70% of the way done. And then they come back. And so what they're finding is their inability to complete those tasks become very detrimental to their job and therefore their lives. And it really frustrates them severely. Also, quite often, a lot of people will say, I think I have anxiety. For some reason, anxiety is that thing that we can have and we don't feel like it's a deficit or something wrong with us. So people who say, I can't get anything done, I feel anxious all of the time. Those two are the key words that I look at when I start talking to somebody about ADHD. And then you start digging into more once you find something, do you hyper focus on it? When you have a task, you put it off for 2 weeks and then in 12 hours, do a wonderful job, but you can't even think about it. You set it out of mind. So look at how well you're producing, look at your anxiety level, and then look if you're hyper focusing once you do finally grab onto something. Those are the 3 key signs. And millennials are the first generation to really say, you know what, I don't need to put up with this. I need to figure out what's wrong so I can be productive. So that's why I think we're seeing it into the adults.
Yes, because there's now so much more proactiveness around ADD and ADHD, even as parents identifying it in children or being able to take the right steps. But when it needs to be nipped in the bud and it needs to be taken care of earlier on so that, it doesn't become detrimental to not only your productivity, but ADHD. People with ADHD earn an average of 18% to 20% less annual income than those without ADHD. And childhood ADHD is associated with an increased risk of death before the age of 46 years old. So adult ADHD is associated with a substantial economic burden, contributing an estimated $123 billion dollars in total societal access costs due to unemployment, productivity loss, and healthcare services. So you are spot on, pharmaceutical expert. Productivity in the workplace is the number one indicator, or lack of productivity in the workplace and lack of completing those tasks, key indicator of ADHD present with people in the workplace. With that, we are officially out of time. Thank you so much for coming on, Phil. It's always such a pleasure doing these segments with you. Not only do I learn something, but I know that everybody listening in on almost Christmas Eve is definitely benefiting from this conversation.
Well, I talk to you all day long. They just won't, we only have 14 minutes. So we can stop with the radio program. I'll chat with Zen with you all day. I love it. This is so much fun.
I love it too. Guys, you definitely have to check out Phil Cowley, America's favorite pharmacist. That was brought to you by triquetrahealth.com. That was the awesome Phil Cowley. Check him out on the gram at Phil's My Pharmacist. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeart Radio. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by Kathy Ireland's Your Home TV and their channel partners. Head to yourhometv.com for free, family-friendly programming, streaming 24/7.
Gretchen Filia is a proponent of American industry. Join her on the ultimate road trip across America, where she highlights the people, places, and experiences that show the American dream and the spirit of its people. Check out Fabric of America on Your Home TV.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by Once Upon a Coconut, 100% pure coconut water. Imagine a drink that's nutrient-rich, powerfully refreshing, naturally sweet with no added sugars, not from concentrate, 0 additives, low in calories, absolutely no artificial flavors, and is so tasty that it will become your new favorite beverage. Enter Once Upon a Coconut, the absolute best tasting coconut water you will ever try. Available in 4 refreshing flavors: pure, chocolate, pineapple, and sparkling with energy. Do your taste buds a favor and pick up some today at onceuponacoconut.com.
Welcome back, beautiful tri-state area. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeart Radio. I'm your host, Zen Sams. Up next in our Hydration with Heart segment, brought to you by Once Upon a Coconut. Today we're featuring Ben Greenfield, a health consultant, speaker, and New York Times bestselling author of a wide variety of books, including Beyond Training, Boundless, Fit Soul, Boundless Cookbook, Endure, Boundless Parenting, and Boundless Kitchen, a frequent contributor to health and wellness publications and websites, and a highly sought after speaker. Ben's understanding of functional exercise, nutrition, and the delicate balance between performance and health has helped thousands of people around the world achieve their goals and improve their quality of life. Today, we're chatting about health hacks that will get you through the holidays enjoyably, the craze behind holiday weight gain, and why statistics show it's more overblown than you think. Now, for decades, the conventional wisdom has been that most people gain about 5 pounds between that first forkful of Thanksgiving stuffing to the greasy egg breakfast on New Year's Day. Well, good news is that the 5 pound pile on is a lot like what you hear about holiday weight gain, overblown. The New England Journal of Medicine published a study of adults showing that the average holiday weight gain was just under a pound, and more than half the people in the study stayed within just over 2 pounds of their weigh ins. Here to chat health hacks and weight gain facts that will take your mind off the pounds and put it on enjoying time with your friends and family is the awesome Ben Greenfield. Welcome to the show, superstar.
What's up, Zen? You got me drooling with that greasy egg comment. Jeez, feel like going out for breakfast now.
Yeah, let's tackle the confusion. I mean, even if the scale says you put on 5 pounds, you probably haven't. And now stats, Ben, are showing that a lot of the scale reads of what the scale is reading is more water weight gain than fat gain. And I assume eating more starchy foods, hello, sweets and dinner rolls, and more salt than usual leads to water retention and bloat. And the scale often picks this up immediately. What do you say to this illusion?
Well, yeah, I mean, carbohydrates carry about 4 times their weight in water, which is why a lot of people, if we look at the flip side of this, will get on a low carb diet and lose a bunch of weight. And then when that stalls out, once they've shed a lot of their water weight, they get a little depressed that their diet isn't working anymore. The concept of increasing carb intake from all the sugars and starches and cookies that you mentioned is nearly unavoidable during the holiday season. But you're right. When you get on the scale, a lot of times what you're seeing is an increase in water weight. This is why I also think it's important to not just look at weight myopically. You should look at body fat percentage. There are scales now that will tell you your body fat percentage or the total pounds of body fat that you actually have. And a lot of times, as you've astutely alluded to, a gain in weight can just be sodium related gain or water related gain from carbohydrates, and not necessarily you getting all porky from extra fat.
It's interesting because my hacks, it's always load up on veggies first because it's actually not better for at least me and anyone to show up to a holiday meal super hungry, with your turkey pants on. And when you're starving, we eat quicker and enjoy less food mindfully and overstuff ourselves. So I say eat some veggies as a pre-dinner snack. And of course, eating veggies also first ensures you can enjoy any foods you want, but you're still getting in the nutrients your body needs. But like you're right, you have to start pacing yourself here. So this brings me to my next question. You're highly unlikely to break even by exercising more during the holidays. Now, this type of food exercise math is always faulty. I am 100% pro exercise for its much needed mood boosting benefits. Plus, it can be an escape from a too much family togetherness moment. But it does not cancel out the stuffing and eggnog. Weight loss is around 80% what you put into your body and 20% what you sweat off. There's also the risk that thinking of what you deserve, say another wedge of pecan pie, which is about 500 calories because you power walked that morning and burnt off about 180 calories in that half hour, is the right way to think about this. I mean, we all know how that story ends. So what do you recommend?
Yeah, you're right. If you actually pay attention to how many calories you burn in an average hard workout at the gym, you might make a dent in like half or a third of the typical holiday meal. I'm not saying that to depress people, but you're right. Paying attention to the total number of calories that you eat is more important than eating as many as you want than trying to exercise it off. Now, muscle helps you to sock away extra carbohydrates. It helps you to lower your blood glucose, and it can keep your metabolism slightly elevated. So if there's anything to focus on, it would be some type of weight training or resistance training routine, or even if you're traveling, a body weight routine paired with some type of high intensity cardio, because high intensity cardio will keep your metabolism elevated for a few hours afterwards. But it does not burn as many calories as many of us would like to believe. Hence the need to adopt strategies like you just described, Zen. Eating vegetables before the meal. Perfect example to lower the blood sugar and keep you from stuffing your mouth with other calories that might seem a lot more palatable when you're less full from the vegetables. You know, you mentioned hacks, and there are newer things out there that can be excellent for controlling the appetite prior to a holiday meal. Collagen or gelatin or amino acids are very satiating, and these can be found in supplements. There's another brand new kind of like form of appetite satiating liquid called ketones, and you can drink ketones on a very busy day for which you might be exposed to a lot of food, or a day in which you want to keep your appetite satiated. And this is stuff used by like Tour de France cyclists and the military to keep soldiers or cyclists going for long periods of time without food, and it makes you less likely to eat. Eating mindfully and with people, slowing down, chewing each bite 25 to 40 times, talking with people, not being on devices or distracted while you're eating. You know, that's another good strategy. And then, you know, I wear, for example, like a continuous blood glucose monitor on my back of my arm. And so I'm constantly testing what type of foods and eating and lifestyle strategies would lower or raise blood glucose. And it's kind of shocking. The number one thing that keeps blood glucose down after eating a very heavy meal, even though walking helps quite a bit, you know, quick 5 to 10 minute walk before or after the meal, is cold shower, cold soak, cryotherapy, jump in a cold pool or lake or river or ocean. Do something that gets you cold before you go and indulge, and your body actually handles it a lot better. And the upside of that is that you also tend to burn a lot of calories for a long period of time after you've gotten cold.
Love those hacks. That's great. Now, it's even something as simple as trying healthier versions, right, of your favorite holiday foods. Like you don't have to stick to the exact mashed potato recipe you make every year or buy frozen pie crusts instead of doing it yourself, right? When planning holiday meals, I always say opt for homemade over processed foods. And yes, buying from a local bakery or takeout from a healthier restaurant counts for you non-chefs, but also identify where you can add more nutrients into the foods you love, like you just so eloquently put. Now, you're also unlikely to make up for overdoing it quickly, even if you diet in January. So if you were boozing and sugaring it up, you might not have an easy time going cold turkey. Sweet begets sweet. And once you start mainlining it, you want it, and a salad no longer looks good. What are your hacks around this?
Yeah, you know, it's interesting because what you do the day before and the day after the day of indulgence can make a really good dent in things. So, for example, I'm a huge fan of intermittent fasting, meaning I'll occasionally skip a meal or wait until later on in the day to eat. And the day before and the day after, a day like, say, Thanksgiving or Christmas, I'll eat just two meals. I usually skip breakfast or I skip lunch. So that automatically gives me, you know, a certain calorie bank to work with, and I'll also be more physically active on both those days, as well as some type of cold or physical activity on the day that I would be eating a higher number of calories. You mentioned substitutes, and you're right. I mean, simple substitutes, like instead of, I don't know, marshmallows on the sweet potato casserole, you can use a lower calorie coconut whipped cream. Or instead of having, you know, full fat eggnog, you can use like cinnamon and nutmeg and spices and put that into like frothed coconut milk or almond milk. You can even use certain like healthier substitutes, like say cauliflower mash instead of like a white potato mash. So once you start to look around for alternatives, they're out there. It's just a matter of kind of checking out the ingredients and finding some of the healthier options. And there are great websites, you know, that show you healthy substitutes for a lot of different foods.
Yeah, in fact, I like the 1 of 4 rule. Bread, booze, dinner carbs like rice or potatoes, and dessert at any meal. I say you pick just one or two if you must, but skip the others. And eating a breakfast with filling protein, drinking lots of water, eating veggies and lean proteins, and not showing up to food centric events ready to gnaw your own arm off will also help you avoid those extra holiday pounds.
Yeah, so the idea of food variety is interesting. People have been shown to eat a higher number of calories, and there's a wider variety of food present, such as the stereotypical buffet. So first of all, loading up your plate with proteins and vegetables first is going to help out a lot with that. Another strategy, you mentioned booze, is interesting because alcohol tends to be burnt preferentially prior to other calories. So even though some people will say, well, don't drink on an empty stomach, I say, well, if you want some of the socially lubricating, dial spinning effects of alcohol, have your glass of wine before the meal and then switch to sparkling water or like bitters and club soda over ice or something with less alcohol so you have room for the other calories. I'm also a huge fan of the psychological trick of using a small plate. My family makes fun of me sometimes because we'll make these big, glorious family dinners, and I'm the biggest guy in the room, and I got the smallest plate in the room because it's harder to pile a lot of that plate, yet you still get satiated once you've made it through the foods that you've put on the small plate. The same can be said for, small glasses, small mugs, small, wine goblets, etc. And then, as far as the idea that I mentioned earlier, mindful eating, I highly recommend you limit your first portion, eat it as mindfully as possible, and then go back for the one or two items that you might have really liked versus loading up your plate with a ton of food and eating it quickly. Because let's face it, no matter what, even if you're full because it's a holiday meal, you're probably going to be tempted to go back for seconds, even if it's just the fact that you're talking with family members and friends and you want something to do while you're doing it. So you grab more food. So eat slowly, use smaller plates, smaller portions, load up with the fiber and proteins like we talked about. Be careful with the alcohol and find substitutions, and even have your glass of wine before the meal even begins.
You just condensed your book in like a 5-minute delivery. I love that. Now, you're a public figure, and one can argue you're an expert when it comes to fitness and health, given your career. Now, as a mom, I love coconut water because it's truly proprietary in its health benefits. Potassium, calcium, and magnesium, those are all the important electrolytes, and they play key roles in helping maintain heart health, liver and kidney health, even digestive functions and healthy blood sugar levels. I could go on, muscle and nerve functions and so much more. But I specifically started drinking coconut water after my radiation while I was battling thyroid disease. And I typically now use it as a cure-all for everything, even hangovers. How does proper hydration impact your performance? And can you share any instances where coconut water has made a significant impact on your training or recovery?
Yeah, I think people hear proper hydration and they don't understand that not all water is created equal. There's some really interesting research by a University of Washington professor named Dr. Gerald Pollack that goes into the idea that water that's in what's called a structured form tends to be more satiating and more hydrating. Where do you find that? You typically get it from water-filled produce, like, say, cucumbers, pumpkins, melons. I tend to go for more of the plumpy, hydrating vegetables than I do the fruits, just because the fruits you have a little bit more sugar. But that, and then adding different mixes of salts and electrolytes to your water can also give it a little bit more of that structured type of feel. Now, coconut water is a perfect example of something that's got a natural amount of structuring in it. It's got a natural, almost like thick gel-like consistency if you notice when you drink it. Now, I used to race Ironman triathlons. I've done 13 Ironman triathlons. I had horrific recovery, and it turned out I needed to get up to 6 grams of sodium per day, balanced with potassium and calcium and magnesium, and also really step up my water intake. And as soon as I did that, I started racing better and I started hydrating better. And it was early on in that journey that I learned that the electrolyte composition of coconut water very closely matches that of human plasma. And so it's almost like the perfect hydrating and electrolyte mix. And people who heard us talking about weight gain in response to sodium intake might raise an eyebrow at this, but the idea is what we're talking about is isolated sodium chloride, like you'd find in table salt. If you get a good mix of hydrating electrolytes, you actually don't see the same issues that you see with high salt intake, and coconut water is a really good example of that.
I love that example. I have to pair you with my good friend, Phil's my pharmacist. He trends really well. You guys speak the same scientific language when you answer questions. I love it because now you just gave us not just the personal reason behind why you love it with your recovery story, but you just gave us a very sound, valid, scientific reason that makes total sense. So for the people out there that are weighing the statistics and the research, there you go. Ben Greenfield just pointed you in the right hydration direction. Now, intermittent fasting has landed on the dieting scene as a way to cut calories without cutting your favorite foods, so to speak. And this eating style only limits the hours you're eating rather than what you're eating, allowing you more flexibility in your weight loss plan. So if you tend to backload your calories late in the day, intermittent fasting might be a solid option for you. But then comes the big question, Ben. How do you pick a schedule that's right for you? So you have the 16-8 schedule, the 14-10 schedule, the whole day fasting, the alternate fasting. Just guide me.
All those alphabet soup, OMAD, FMD, IFD. So yeah, intermittent fasting, a few quick rules. It turns out that it appears to be better to front load more of your calories early in the day than later in the day. So if you're able to resist having dinner or have dinner at an earlier time, that's better. I realize that can sound societally restrictive. You don't have to do that every day of the week, but doing like a breakfast lunch appears to be better than doing like a lunch dinner. Now, you can eat 3 square meals per day, but the idea with intermittent fasting is you're compressing them all into a feeding window. Typically, it's called like an 8 to 12 hour feeding window. And when you do that, it's just harder to eat as many calories as you would eat if you were eating what's called ad libitum, whatever points you want throughout the day spread out over a longer cycle. And so a big part of the magic of intermittent fasting is that it's just harder to eat a lot of calories in that window that you've limited yourself to. So what's the window? In most men and in postmenopausal women, a 12 to 16 hour period of time each day that you go without eating, and obviously a big part of that could be overnight, is pretty good. In premenopausal women, especially lean, athletic premenopausal women, that appears to cause endocrine and fertility disruption. And a shorter fasting window is appropriate for premenopausal women, like 10 to 12 hours. So I do this almost every day of the year. I'm very competitive with it, meaning like when I finish dinner, I'll literally just like look at my watch, see what time it is. Let's say I finish dinner at 8. Then I know I won't be eating again until at least 8 a.m. And I tend to go more like 14 hours. So I typically finish dinner sometime around 8 p.m. or so, if you count dessert or something I might be having after dinner. And then I won't eat again until about 10 a.m. I'll usually have an exercise session in the morning at some point before I've eaten to mobilize fat stores, sometimes combined with a cold soak or cold therapy, which further mobilizes fat stores. And that's generally a kind of an overview of how the intermittent fasting would work.
Yeah, when we talk about intermittent fasting, it totally makes sense. The idea stems from our hunter-gatherer roots. It's thought that our bodies are much more adapted to fasting than we are to our steamed 3 meals a day. And the theory suggests that our ancestors fasted often when food was scarce, causing our cells to learn how to function in a fasted state. And this is according to a 2019 study published in the New England Journal of Medicine. And thus, intermittent fasting was born. Now, through research, we've seen that because of intermittent fasting, there's improvements in insulin resistance, blood pressure levels, and inflammation. And of course, intermittent fasting is famed for its potential effects on weight loss, which we know now have been proven. It's been seen to help people lose 7 to 11 pounds on average over 10 weeks. And this is according to the Harvard School of Public Health. Now, last question. Why do you think Once Upon a Coconut brand has taken off as quickly and successfully as it has? I mean, coconut water is coconut water, but why are all these VIPs and celebrities like yourself major endorsers?
This is good coconut water. What I mean by that, primarily, the appealing part to me is the inner lining of the can. Doesn't have a lot of metals and BPA in it, which is a really common issue in the canned or packaged beverage industry anyways. They have really good sourcing, and they got flavors like pineapple and the caffeinated one and plain, and then, oh my gosh, chocolate. That morning smoothie when you break your intermittent fast, oh my gosh, little chocolate, coconut water, some ice, some protein powder, blend that all up, top it with some bee pollen and cacao nibs. You got yourself like a nice little morning superfood smoothie that tastes like chocolate ice cream for breakfast, guilt-free.
Guilt-free. Well, we are out of time. Thank you so much, Ben, for coming on. We've gone over the 14 minutes, but of course, we could talk forever because I just love your commentary. I just thank you so much for coming on. It was a great Christmas special.
Thanks, Zen. You're making me hungry.
Know that health is more than diet and exercise. If you're still under the impression that one meal or a few holidays can drastically affect your body long term, you should also know that health is not a two-part formula of diet plus exercise. The podcasts we listen to, the people we spend our time with, the shows we binge on Netflix, the accounts we follow on Instagram, the way we speak to ourselves and others are all things that feed us too. If you're not as focused on the ways you're being fed and nourished besides the food on your plate, or the ways you're burning energy besides exercise, you're missing key pieces of the puzzle. Bottom line, you could eat whatever you wanted and not work out once and still have lots of opportunities to nourish yourself. Focus on how your relationships nourish you, the compassion you're giving yourself, and how you're spending your free time to truly become your healthiest self. That was our Hydration with Heart segment brought to you by Once Upon a Coconut. And that was the amazing Ben Greenfield, a health consultant, speaker, and New York Times best-selling author. You could head directly to his website at bengreenfieldlife.com, or you could check him out on the gram at Ben Greenfield Fitness. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeart Radio. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by Once Upon a Coconut, 100% pure coconut water. Imagine a drink that's nutrient-rich, powerfully refreshing, naturally sweet with no added sugars, not from concentrate, zero additives, low in calories, absolutely no artificial flavors, and is so tasty that it will become your new favorite beverage. Enter Once Upon a Coconut, the absolute best tasting coconut water you will ever try. Available in 4 refreshing flavors: pure, chocolate, pineapple, and sparkling with energy. Do your taste buds a favor and pick up some today at onceuponacoconut.com.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by The Wellness Way, your trusted partner in health restoration. Now you can feel amazing at any age with their foundational testing and mind-body approach. The Wellness Way offers in-clinic and telehealth support when you're ready to test, not guess, what your body needs. Discover your best health by visiting their website, thewellnessway.com, and selecting a clinic near you. Do health differently at thewellnessway.com.
Welcome back to this week's Discover Your Potential Express segment, sponsored by The Wellness Way on A Moment of Zen, right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeart Radio. I'm Anna DeVere, co-host of Discover Your Potential, and today we're chatting about self-care. And if you're like me, you're probably ready for a long winter's nap. That's why I'm purposely wearing my jammies today, because I'm getting serious about exactly what I need. And what I need is a whole lot more me time. I'm also ready to put 2023 to bed. For some reason, there were more challenges than any other year that I can remember. But the amazing thing about our guest lineup is that I always find exactly what I need right when I need it. And I'm so excited to share what I discovered at the Natural Living Expo in Marlborough, Massachusetts. There were hundreds of exhibitors with incredible mind-body solutions, but the Wellness Way stood out for their approach to health and what they call total health restoration. And here's what that means. You get to meet with them via telehealth or in person and talk about what you're concerned with. And then they recommend the testing that's right for you, because it's really important that you don't guess, but you test. And then they give you the next steps. So they start with food allergy testing, stool testing, and custom blood panels paired with the Dutch test to get a comprehensive look at hormones and adrenals. I know you'd probably rather think about self-care as spas and pedicures, but here's why I'm getting real about doing a deep dive on my health. When I lost my job this year, I also lost my health insurance. So the signs of stress were compounded, and the small things I was ignoring, they felt like an elephant on my chest. So please don't wait for a health crisis to find out what you need most, because the thing your family cannot afford to lose is you. I have so many plans and dreams and goals for 2024, and I'm going to share the hottest tips from my guests about motivation and manifestation so you can join me in designing your own new year, new you. But big dreams start with a foundation of health. So take a small step forward with me, and I promise the big leap will happen for you, because putting yourself first is the key to discovering your potential. Check out our upcoming extended episode with The Wellness Way at www.discoveryourpotentialshow.com. And if you feel like joining me for this health adventure, or as I like to call it, an inventure, then go to www.wellnessway.com and find a clinic near you. Tell them Anna from Discover Your Potential sent you. From iHeart to Your Heart, this express segment was sponsored by The Wellness Way. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeart Radio. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by Kathy Ireland's Your Home TV and their channel partners. Head to yourhometv.com for free, family-friendly programming, streaming 24/7.
Life can take unexpected turns. Meet Carrie Portal, a cattle rancher and professional speaker who has overcome partially disabling injuries to embrace a life of courage and resilience. As a survivor of an impaired driver, she refuses to let her injuries define her. Carrie's learned to adapt, push limits, and live life to the fullest. Join her as she shares her inspiring story on Cruisin' Cowgirl, a new TV series streaming on yourhometv.com and Roku.
Well, that's a wrap, my dear friends. Remember to join me right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, every Saturday night from 9 to 10 p.m., or you could head to 710WOR.iHeart.com/A Moment of Zen. Also remember that we're live on Traverse TV Sundays at 1 p.m. Eastern, YouTube Sundays at 2 p.m. Eastern, and all episodes of A Moment of Zen stream on Kathy Ireland's Your Home TV streaming platform. You could head directly to our channel at mox.yourhometv.com. Thank you for listening to A Moment of Zen. It's been an absolute pleasure being your host. Thanks again to all of our sponsors that continue to make this show possible. And remember that happiness is the only thing that multiplies when you share it. Happy holidays and Merry Christmas. We'll see you next week.